Does anybody remember couch co-op? For my money, playing in the same room with a couple of friends is one of the best ways to experience a video game. So when there's a Mario game completely dedicated to multiplayer, it's an obvious plus. A lot of games on Switch have a little sibling mode. What's a little sibling mode, you ask? Well, it's a game that kind of has multiplayer, but it comes at the cost of the personal enjoyment and freedom of both players. Mario Odyssey is a great example. Playing as Cappy is not fun. It's not. The only thing that makes it fun is the fact that you at least get to play the game. It's the role that you give your little brother if he has to play. Let's Go is another example. The second player can't interact with anything on the map, and you're forced to go into battles 2-on-1. Playing multiplayer is an inferior way to experience those games. Now, 3D World is like, alright, we're going to make a single-player game, but also one that has a good multiplayer too. We won't neglect the multiplayer, which is just fantastic. What's the Gimmick is back with a new gimmick, which are characters and actual multiplayer. The implementation of multiplayer is very good and makes Mario 3D World one of the best co-op games ever. A lot of problems that come with multiplayer-focused games is that the complexity of levels takes a major hit, like in Kirby Star Allies. The earlier levels are best suited for multiplayer because the levels are simpler, and thus everyone has a lot of room to move around. As you progress further into the game, the levels become more complicated and much harder. This makes multiplayer more chaotic and frantic, which is arguably more enjoyable. To accompany the multiplayer, the game has 5 different playable characters. Mario is the all-around, Luigi can jump high but has bad traction, Toad is fast but can't jump high, Peach can float but is slow, and Rosalina has the spin move from Galaxy but is really slow. I do kind of wish that everybody had a special ability like Peach or Rosalina. And speaking of Rosalina, her special ability is flawed because you can't use it with a power-up. I'm surprised they didn't tie her spin move to another button or to the jump button like Peach's. And I'm also kind of surprised that they didn't add another character for the port. The movement system is fine. They replaced the dive with an air roll, which doesn't go terribly far, but whatever. You can only move in 8 directions, which at first I thought it was weird, but after I actually played the game, I realized that precise platforming becomes so much easier. The game closely follows the structure of a 2D Mario game, only except this time the levels are in 3D. There is a world map, and each different world has a different environmental theme. Do the levels themselves match the environment that they're in? No, obviously not. Why would the developers be consistent with their theme? Now, the actual levels themselves are short and linear. The linear levels allow you to experience more ideas and mechanics, but as a consequence, you experience these ideas a lot faster than other games, and thus, more creative effort has to be put in by the developers to keep the player entertained. Because of the very linear design, there are no parts in the game with huge open areas for exploring. The game is more about overcoming a series of obstacles rather than finding something new. I must say, after playing 64 and Odyssey back to back, it is a welcome change of pace. I find the actual gameplay and interaction with the level in 3D World much more enjoyable than exploring at times. The way that the side content in the green stars and the stamps has been very streamlined. It acts as a precursor to the moon system in Odyssey. Each level has 3 green stars and a stamp. To get to the final world, you have to grab all of these. Remember in 64, whenever you wander off the course and found a star, it shoots you all the way back to the castle. In the level, you can collect whatever you want, and it never gets in the way of the end goal of the level. This is an early version of the system in Odyssey, where you can collect the moon and continue on the main story mission. With that being said, I thought the music was thoroughly underwhelming. The game was made in a time where Nintendo used a lot of saxophones in their songs. So as an example, you have the Dolphin Shoals theme in Mario Kart 8. The new songs are really good, but I can't help but question their decision of reusing so much old music. The new stuff was so good that I wish all of the songs were new, but there were a lot of recycled tracks, which in a way makes the game feel less substantial, and it doesn't feel like they put 100% effort into making the game as good as it can be. Speaking of less substantial, the biggest issue with Mario 3D World is its legacy, or lack of one. It is not a memorable game at all. It feels like another Mario game. The thing that makes this one memorable out of all the 3D Mario games is that it's the forgettable one. To prove my point, let's make a comparison. Notice how in the Odyssey clip you get completely original music with a huge explorable world. The inhabitants of the world are dancing and making it feel a real place that someone would want to explore. In the 3D World clip, the place has no definitive art style, no world building, nothing interesting visually. In fact, the background just looks like plain PNG pictures. Ignoring the game design of the levels and just looking at first impressions, 3D World is hopelessly outmatched by Odyssey, and for that matter, every single game in the series, including 64, which was released nearly 20 years prior. When I say something like, I find the linear design more interesting, that is a subjective opinion. But when I say that 3D World makes nearly zero attempt at world building, I'm sorry, but I really don't see how someone could disagree with me. At the end of the day, 3D World is a game, and every other game in the series is more of an experience. However, at the end of the day, the game is fun and it's well designed. Sometimes that's all you can ask. I put it ahead of Mario 64, but behind Odyssey. Now, let's talk about a real game, Bowser's Fury. I have 2 games left to go, and I'll be shocked if any of them beat this. I have no idea why this exists. Nintendo could have easily just released 3D World on Switch and called it a day, or sell this as DLC, but they didn't. And I think it's the one time where the pricing for a Nintendo game is fair. Getting into how the game works, there is a big open area like a super kingdom from Mario Odyssey. Each level is in the super kingdom. If you want to go to a level, you just walk there. It may seem like such a small change, but it super streamlines the game. Remember how I said Odyssey was just game for the whole time, no filler, just game? Well, I actually lied. You have to go through a menu to get to each kingdom. In Bowser's Fury, you just walk to the next level. To start, most of the map is covered with black uncrossable goo that blocks off a lot of the world from exploration. Every once in a while, Giga Bowser will awake, and you can either defeat him with a Super Bell, collect a cat shrine, or just wait him out. Once you defeat Bowser, the goo is removed and more of the world is explorable. Each area of the map houses 3 or so levels with 5 shrines each. Some areas are really small and some are bigger. Because there is so much in a small area, a lot is really sandwiched together. It, however, really doesn't matter because it's Mario. It's obvious they put a lot of effort into the design. Each level is also home to a new mechanic. There's one about switch pads. There's one where you're supposed to slide down an ice slide in a skate. There's one that's entirely made out of invisible platforms. It is incredible how far they can push a concept in such a small area without making it seem forced or cramped. Each level also hosts similar challenges like chasing after Shadow Luigi or destroying the Bowser blocks by strategically getting Giga Bowser to use his flames in a certain spot. The music, what do you expect? It's great. There's the ambient, quiet melody that you would expect from beaches and a lake. Each level itself has a unique, upbeat, childlike charm. Whenever you ride on Plessy, the music just goes absolutely nuts. The only mistake that was made was with the power-ups. Having so many power-ups at your disposal makes the game more interesting, but you can also never lose. If you fall off, you don't die, you just lose a couple seconds of progress. There was one level that had lava at the bottom, but other than that, you have to actively try to die. That and, well, the length of the game. This is a short game. It feels like they're giving us a glimpse into the future of Mario. One of the most fun parts about the game was speculating what would be next, which is exactly what I will do. Remember in New Super Mario Bros. U, how they made the world map connected, and they made it seem like a huge deal when it really wasn't? It was supposed to be a callback to Super Mario World, a game that, in my opinion, is heavily underrated and deserves some love. A reimagining of the game using the locations and general layout of the Super Nintendo original, but in a 3D space. Think about what they could do with the different Yoshis, the P-Balloon, the cape. After you collect a certain amount of Yoshi coins, you can move on to Donut Plains, then Vanilla Dome, etc. I think there is so much potential with that idea. Too bad they wasted the name Mario 3D World, though. In case you haven't picked up on it yet, Bowser's Fury is at the top. The bar has been set so incredibly high for Galaxy and Sunshine. And the last thing I want to talk about is these two games in a package together. I think it is a match made in heaven. They are the two most linear and open-ended games in this series that gives the player a good sampling of everything 3D Mario has to offer. Plus, depending on which game someone prefers, you can choose your next game accordingly, i.e. if you like Bowser's Fury the best, you could play Odyssey, 64, or Sunshine, and if you like 3D World the best, you would play the Galaxy games.